ignoring it necessarily, but there are other stations. People just click on here to talk about RamView, and I don't want to get into what will definitely become a political thing. All I can just tell you is that there's guns, there's mental illness, and the thing that we don't acknowledge, there's intelligent evil out there causing great damage to everyone. And until we acknowledge there's intelligent evil out there, nothing will ever change. So with that said, boring Super Bowl. It was boring until the last quarter. The Rams Super Bowl against the Patriots was the most boring Super Bowl ever. Guys, I've never really been bored. Maybe when it was the Cowboys Broncos in Super Bowl 12, that was boring to me. But Super Bowls aren't boring. Great football games aren't boring just because they're not 42-35, right? I love the games that are a little bit sloppy, games that are a little bit imperfect, because quite often what's happening is other teams are messing up the other team's plans, right? And so there's always a counterweight to everything you want to do. Someone's going to try to stop you, and some teams can do it. And then, some teams, look like the Arizona Cardinals. They can't stop you. And so I love these games. I love it when they're messy. I wish there was more mud. I wish there was more rain. I wish there were less domes. I wish there was more grass and less artificial turf, because I love the challenge of all the elements. And I think it's the really weak sportscaster. It's the really weak sports writer. And it's the fan that's not really invested into what football is that gets bored for 3 quarters at a football game. I'm sorry. I got to give an opinion here. And that opinion is football is not boring. If you're bored by the first 3 quarters of that Chiefs 49ers game and you couldn't see what was going on in the strategic aspects of it, then the problem's you. The problem wasn't the NFL. The problem was you and not the game. Yeah, we like action and everything, but I love seeing stops. But then again, I love seeing 2-1 baseball games where the pitchers are going at it for 9 innings, right? But they took that away from us too, and kind of lose interest in baseball after that. But I love these teams when they just slug it out and they push and they push and they fight through all the adversity. And the shame of it is that sometimes it doesn't seem like you have officials that are willing to fight through the adversity as well and make proper, appropriate calls or amend them when they know they've gotten something wrong. Anyway, I digress. Football's a great game, and that's what makes it great, is the imperfections of it and everything. Okay, Ram stuff. Note, after I delivered on Monday an all forgiven to Coach Spags. Do you remember on Monday from my hotel in Las Vegas, I said, Coach Spags is now off the Rams fans blank list, right? Because everyone had an attitude about Coach Spags because it went south so quick for him in his 3 seasons in St. Louis with the Rams. And so after what he delivered against the 49ers, I gave him the all clear. And then it was yesterday or this morning, Kevin Demoff, Rams football operations guy, posted on Twitter or X, it is well past time to see Spags get another head coaching opportunity. The team and organization he inherited in St. Louis was a mess. Nobody could have had success, yet he changed the culture, staff, and players believed. An amazing human deserving of the real shot we couldn't give him. Okay, I will say this. He did inherit a mess. He inherited a disaster. He inherited a decade's worth of horrible draft picks. And he went 7-9, but the following year, everything fell apart. And yeah, someone had to pay the price, and it was Spags. And I think he's a DC. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, Coach Spags. He's a DC, but I thought that was cool that it was acknowledged. Hey, next week, we're going to start getting into, hey, what do you want to do at this position? What do you want to do at safety, at corner, at linebacker, at edge, at DT? All those. We're going to start breaking those things down because I didn't want to dive into it too soon. I wanted to make sure we were on the other side of the Super Bowl when we did. But it bears to mention the free agents that the Rams have this year. So I want to get those things out right away. These are the unrestricted free agents. Kevin Dotson, Carson Wentz, Demarcus Robinson, Ahkello Witherspoon, Jordan Fuller, John Johnson. These are all unrestricted free agents. Laurel Murchison, I think, is one too. And so these guys are all out there. Alaric Jackson is a free agent, but he's a restricted free agent, which means the Rams can place a first or second round tender on him, pay him that rate. And if somebody signs him, he gets a better offer, than we get the draft pick. So I think Alaric Jackson's going to be back. I'm not really too concerned about it. The guys we're concerned about are, of course, Dotson, Wentz, Demarcus Robinson, Ahkello Witherspoon. Dotson being first on that list. And then, judging on how you want to look at it, Ahkello Witherspoon, Demarcus Robinson, and then, of course, Carson Wentz. And I think Carson Wentz is critical in one aspect because the Rams Super Bowl window is open. I don't want a rookie quarterback backing up, no matter how good he is. I don't want a rookie quarterback backing up Matthew Stafford for the next 2 years, right? So let's see if we can get Carson Wentz, who's made big money in this league. Maybe he spends a year, learns how to play football again, the McVay way, and then parlays that into something that Baker Mayfield got this past offseason. Dotson, of course, we do want Dotson back. The thing about Ahkello Witherspoon is, will we get another year out of him? I think Ahkello Witherspoon gave the Rams the best you could have ever imagined. Will you get that again this year coming in? And, of course, will you get it at the right figure, right? Demarcus Robinson I really like, but he's getting later in his career. He has not had a payday. And I don't know how much the Rams want to offer him when you can draft another receiver. The draft is loaded with receivers, and we're not just talking first and second round talent. We're talking third round talent on back. Remember, I don't have to tell you, Puka Nacua, fifth round. Jordan Fuller, it would be a really break of how would you say, precedent for the Rams to re-sign Jordan Fuller. I don't want them to spend any money on Fuller that they could usually maybe use on Dotson, Witherspoon, Robinson, or Wentz. John Johnson, I don't think he has a market. I think he ends up coming back to the Rams if he can still play, or if he still wants to play, or if the Rams still want him. It's not going to be a financial thing. And then you get to the restricted free agents. We talked about Alaric Jackson. I think we all want Alaric Jackson back. Jonah Williams, who's really played himself into a nice position, but somehow he walks or moves on, it's not going to hurt the Rams. Christian Rozeboom, Michael Hoyt. We do like Christian Rozeboom. He had a nice year, but again, undrafted free agent, right? Michael Hoyt, the Rams will keep. We just don't want to see him in the same role, right? I think he's a spot guy. I do not think he's an every down edge guy, and I think we've seen that when he gets caught up in coverage. And asking him to play coverage isn't really his fault. It's the defensive scheme's fault. And I like to see his hand back down in the dirt occasionally at 300 pounds. It might not be a bad thing. Ronnie Rivers is an exclusive rights free agent. He'll be back. Other guys like Austin Trammell, Laurel Murchison, Bryson Hopkins, Duke Shelley, even Tremaine Ingram, they feel like they can go or they can stay. And I don't know if they have big markets. And then, of course, Troy Reeder, who, when you think of a Troy Reeder, you think of a Christian Rozeboom, and why you would want these guys back. Obviously, I don't know if you want them as starters, but these guys are experienced special teams performers, and we know where the Rams special teams is at. Okay, let's look at around the NFL and other places and go back to the Super Bowl just one more time. And one of the things that's really bugging me is just hearing the conversation about Brock Purdy again. I think there's two camps here. We've got to blame Purdy because we can't blame Shanahan, right? And then the other group that wants to blame Shanahan for everything from the coin flip. The coin flip's not an issue, folks. There's enough arguments there why he took the coin flip. Totally get it. There's not a problem there with the coin flip, with me anyway. But I just want to say this one more time. I shared it on Monday's show when they said, well, Brock Purdy couldn't match up. He was outclassed by Mahomes. Well, everyone's going to be outclassed by Mahomes. But it was Brock Purdy that put his team up 16-13. It was Brock Purdy that put his team up 19-16. It was Brock Purdy that put his team up 22-19. And they'll say, well, he didn't score touchdowns. Well, each time Brock Purdy put his team up, Mahomes led his team to a field goal to tie him. Made it 16-16, 19-19, right? And then finally on the last drive, he scored a touchdown. The problem here was the defense. And let's just not say, Brock Purdy was the problem here. But I think it's an easy jump. A guy that's only been in the league 2 years, has overcome an elbow injury, been to 2 conference finals and a Super Bowl, who was the last player drafted. I'm not saying he's an elite quarterback, but what I am saying is he didn't keep the 49ers from winning the Super Bowl. Another thing I wanted to point out here that others did, I saw this one and I didn't comment on it because I felt like someone else had said it and it was made enough sense, but it was interesting. Teams have to roll the dice, right? Because teams like the Rams, 49ers, you got to decide where you want to invest and what you don't want to invest in. We know this. I'm not talking down to you guys. You guys know this. And the Rams always roll the dice, right, at backup quarterback. They've been notoriously cheap in the McSnead era when it comes to backup quarterbacks. And the most obvious example of where it bit them was week 9 against Green Bay, right? It came back and bit them, right? Hence, re-sign Carson Wentz if you can. Well, the 49ers, they lost Mike McGlinchey, who was a first-round pick out of Notre Dame a few years ago. He was their right tackle, great compliment for about 3 seasons with Trent Brown, right? Nice right tackle. Not great, but he got a nice 5-year deal in Denver for 87 rocks, 17 and a half rocks a year. Now, yeah, I can see maybe not wanting to pay a right tackle that much. So they let him go, and they promoted Colton McKivitz, who was a 5th rounder out of West Virginia in 2020. And McKivitz graded 47 out of 81 this year. And he's only a 1.5 rock hit. But this was the first year he started, and he ended up starting in the Super Bowl, right? And of course, you saw that 3rd down in overtime where he flared right, and Chris Jones had an easy lane to go get a free run on Brock Purdy, and Purdy's pass went incomplete. Now, when I saw it, I was looking at the tackle. I think everyone else saw it. They were looking at the tackle. I saw a tweet today that said Spencer Buford, the right guard, took responsibility for Jones's free run. It could be Buford, but you saw it, and there's a lot of stuff along that 49ers offensive line where they kind of just took care of the bare minimum, right? And it's a weakness of the 49ers, and it came back and it got them. I still think it was McGlinchey, but not McGlinchey. I still think it was McKivitz, but if Burford wants to take the heat, he could take the heat. It just was what it looked like on the screen. You guys can tell me if you see the highlights of it again. Also, another one that popped out, and I heard Daniel Jeremiah talk about this. I saw it, but I didn't know what I saw, right? With Frisco up 22-19, after that play where they only got a field goal on the first possession of overtime, it was 22-19, but they had forced Kansas City into a 4th and 1 at the 34, at their own 34. And if KC stopped, the 49ers are world champions, right? And what they run out there with is they kind of run something similar to a triple option, right? Mahomes can give the ball to Pacheco, he can throw to Kelsey, or he can keep it himself. And they weren't shy. They didn't go to Chase Young's side. They went to Nick Bosa side. Nick Bosa, all defensive everything side, right? And when he faked the handoff to Pacheco, Bosa chose Pacheco, right? And that's where Mahomes had the free run because Bosa committed. And so the argument there was Bosa's this all-world defensive player. Why wouldn't you think Mahomes? I mean, are you going to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands on a 4th and 1, right? You're not going to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands on 4th and 1. And so there was a little critique there for Nick Bosa because he chose Pacheco. And of course, Chiefs got the first down and the game was won. But I got some more good news for Ram fans, right? This is just how I feel. Bosa went from 18 and a half sacks in 2022 to just 10 and a half this year with Javon Hargrave, with Eric Armstead, with Chase Young, Chase Young for the better part of the season. He only got 10 and a half sacks. And we know the Frisco pass rush went dark somewhere around Christmas and didn't get activated until the second half against the Lions in the NFC title game. But here's even better news. Bosa's contract is 14 rocks next year. It means it's 14 million. In 2025, it's 20 and a half. In 2026, 42 rocks. In 2027, 52 rocks. In 2028, 42 rocks. Now, I don't know if he's going to survive to see the length of that contract, but that is backloaded, and that is going to really hurt this team going forward. And he literally had his sack production cut in half this year, even with all that help along the front line. And ask Charger fans, any Charger fans out there, how do they feel about Joey Bosa's contract? right? And I'm not saying the Bosas aren't hard workers, but sometimes, man, sometimes you just overpay. And I think it's marvelous. I think it's marvelous. That's good news for the Rams going forward. Speaking of the 49ers, they put Steve Wilks, their defensive coordinator, 48 hours after they lost the Super Bowl, they kicked him to the curb, put him in the street. And yeah, there's all sorts of reasons you could say for that. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? But hey, again, I'm the head coach. I'm running down the line in the last 10 seconds of overtime. I'm calling a timeout to get my defensive set, right? You could fire Wilks, but the ultimate is the guy with his finger on the button is Kyle Shanahan. But we got to protect Shanahan. So Steve Wilks, who actually interviewed for the Chargers job, is out of work again. I kind of like the guy. I think he is a pretty good defensive coordinator. I think he had a team that underperformed. I think they had a secondary that was below caliber. And I think they brought in guys they thought could catch fire, like Chase Young, and they didn't. And and he still had them as a top 10 defense. But yeah, so Wilks feels like the fall guy here, and I think it's a bad look for Shanahan. That's just me. Steeler fan Rob is all excited because they put Mitchell Trubisky in the street. That means they've committed to Mason Rudolph as their backup next year. But he's arguing, Steeler fan Rob is, that they're clearing space to put in a bid for Chiefs free agent cornerback L'Jarius Snead. And all I can say to the Steeler fans is get in line. Because if I had the dough, I'd find a way to get L'Jarius Snead on my team. So I didn't read the buzz on the Steelers being interested in L'Jarius Snead, but I read the buzz on the Raiders, and they're in dire need of a cornerback. I'm highly interested in L'Jarius Snead, as are the Cowboys and the Ravens and other teams as well. And all I know for sure about L'Jarius Snead is he's going to make a killing this offseason. Watching Snead, and I'll take correction, but watching Snead and Trent McDuffie in the Super Bowl, it really did take me back to Lester Hayes and Michael Haynes, the way they shut down the Redskin receivers in the Super Bowl for the '83 season. I believe that was Super Bowl 18. And where was Brandon Ayuk? Where was Deebo Samuel, right? Let alone they still couldn't find George Kittle. And I think Trent McDuffie and those guys had a lot to do with it, and L'Jarius Snead. So that is really an interesting take. Okay, I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, one of the founding guys at Mid-Valley Sports. Those are the guys I actually went to the Super Bowl with, and I do RamView now. They're in the room with the Chargers, covering the Chargers. I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto Repair. I do RamView, and I write books. My books are on Amazon. I've written 2 high school football novels, among others, and they've been well received. And so I got a 3rd football novel coming out called Game Day in the Ram Cave. It is a novel. It's about friends watching the big game and who you watch it with. And I'm looking forward to get that out very, very soon. But you can check out all my work there on Amazon, and you'll see by my writing that my writing and my sports stuff helps me pay the way so I can keep doing my day job. Is I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene, and we have our channel right here on YouTube called Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can check us out there as well as burbankfaithvirtual.com and other places across social media. So if you have any questions about that, feel free. But please check out one of my books. Check out our sponsors. Kid needs a new Hawaiian shirt going into the summer. All right. Rams update. They hired John Stryker, who was the Titans director of football administration, as the new coordinator of football strategy. I have no idea what that means, but okay, that's what the Rams have done, and awesome for them. Okay. But let me get to some questions here from the people watching. Tim Burns, I am seeing Bo Nix dropping to the 2nd round. Do we roll the dice? If I can get Bo Nix in the 2nd round, maybe. Again, if I sign Carson Wentz, I might hold off on Bo Nix because, there's going to be another generational quarterback next year and the year after that and the year after that. I think, I like Bo Nix. I do, but I want the team building to fill this window. I want the 24, 25, maybe 26 seasons. I want those windows. I want to maximize those windows. I don't want to get a quarterback that's not going to play for 2 or 3 years. Tim Burns, I think the draft is deep at edge. So how about Cooper DeJean out of Iowa at number 19? We get a pro-ready CB, then hit Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Is that like the best name ever, Chop Robinson at 52? He is 6'3", 258. and runs a 4.4. I think it sounds really good. I would have no problem if there's a guy there late second, early third that's an edge guy if you don't make a trade for like a Josh Allen. I have no problem with that. Yeah, I have no problem with that. As long as with one of our 4 top 100 picks, we take an offensive lineman, and you got the corner there. It was, I would go all with all those Tim Burns, and we'll see how it plays out through free agency because that's really going to tell the tale. Mr. Tim Powers out in Irvine. I don't get bored when the 49ers lose like that. Mr. Tim Burns, you're commenting to Mr. Tim Powers is very wise. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I felt like Reagan McNeil, possessed by the devil, giggling in the corner as the 49ers collapsed. The best thing in the world is for the sports-wise is the Rams to win the Super Bowl. The second best thing is to see the 49ers lose the Super Bowl. So there you go. Mr. Powers talks about Steve Wilkes being fired. Yes, we mentioned that. Tim Burns, Hoyt needs to be on the line. I agree. Hand in the dirt, maybe move him around a little bit. He's a quality piece. Just don't ask him to do what he's not capable of doing. The minute he backpedals, I wince. You and all of Ramdom, man. All of Random winces when they see there should be a flag for illegal Hoyt downfield on defense, right? I get what you mean. Tim Burns, Purdy commands respect. I like his command of the team. Hey, again, I think people are forgetting as they're dismissing Purdy, besides the comebacks that he kept doing for the team. I think the thing they're dismissing about Purdy is, again, Mr. Irrelevant, second year in the league. He's exceeding expectations. Why isn't he going to his other receivers? Well, everyone praises Purdy for his processing ability. You know what he processed? He processed that Ayuk and Samuel were covered by Snead and McDuffie, and he kept going to Jawan Jennings, who, by the way, I think was the 49ers postseason MVP this year. Let's see what we got here. Mr. Tim Powers, if Rams fortify the pass rush, they can live with their DBs. I agree with that in one sense. I do. That's why I think if you wanted to move off 19 and include that in a trade for Josh Allen, and commit to that, he's going to get to that quarterback that split second sooner. That takes some pressure off your DBs, and then you can take a DB somewhere in the top 100 to kind of fill out that cornerback room. I think pass rush really does make your cornerbacks better, unless it's Trent McDuffie. If there's Trent McDuffie at number 19, can we put Trent McDuffie back in the draft? I'll take that. Okay. Steve Ramirez, striker. Okay, Steve. Bill, are you concerned that the 49ers are going to sign Belichick as a defensive coordinator? I welcome the 49ers signing the Bill Belichick as their defensive coordinator, because I don't think Bill Belichick has the capacity to play second banana, second fiddle, and I think it would cause disruption in the organization. He's got to lead or he has to leave. And also, again, I shared it on Monday's episode, is the 49ers are going to be good next year, but they're not going to be better. They're going to be good, but they're not going to be better, and they're going to lose some pieces, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to do. Are they really going to spend the money on Chase Young? Please let them spend the money on Chase Young. They've already invested in Hargrave. Armistead is there, getting some tread. Some of that tread starting to get worn on the tire. They've lost. They'll probably won't have Dre Greenlaw back until maybe October, because he tore his Achilles. And the secondary is kind of so. They're going to be okay, but they're not going to be great. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm all sold on the Boza clan like everyone else seems to be. Bill, would you favor the Rams trading up to get the top 5 and get in the top and get a Harrison Jr.? If the Rams did it, I would applaud it, but I don't want them to, right? I don't want them to. I understand what it would mean. Gosh, could you imagine the Rams adding Marvin Harrison to Puka Nacua and moving Kupp to your third receiver? It would be devastating, right? It would be devastating. But that would be, can you re-sign Kevin Dotson, right? Can you find somebody else to come in and play edge? Because those are really key things I think would have to be. I'd probably complain if it was Steve Ortmeyer, John Shaw, But if it was Les Snead and Sean McVay, you'd have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Mark Reiber, who here went to the Rams Super Bowl parade? Not me. I don't go to parades. I don't. I don't go to parades, and seldom do I go to the games because they're so expensive.
We'll have a coupon day or something.
Yeah, unless there's a coupon day, I don't even go to games that much, or if I'm in the booth, or if I'm in the press box. But no, I didn't go to the Rams Super Bowl parade. I'd be interested to know if you went, Mark. USA expat, between free agency and the draft, I feel this will be another year of Snead trading plus big signings year. He's got money and he's got 11 draft picks. When we were kids, you put $20 in your pocket and it would just burn. You'd have to go spend it. I get the feeling the same thing, USA expat, that Les Snead is going, oh man, I got money to spend and draft picks to deal. Yeah, he's probably pretty excited about that. Steve Ramirez, I think they'll go edge in free agency and draft a corner, but could flip it too. I agree in one sense, Steve, but I think Will Anderson, as well as Nolan Smith, McDonald, all these guys that we saw drafted high, it takes a while for an edge guy to develop. If we're going to take the first round, keep that 19th pick, I would like to see a corner there because I think, free agency for an edge or maybe a deal or something like that. I don't see it flipping unless L'Jarius Snead decides he wants to come to SoFi, and then I'm all on board. Let's see. Tim Powers, loved Airplane. There we go. Tim Burns, the hoodie coaching under you would have to be an uncomfortable for an HC. I agree. I think the aspect there too is I think the 49ers front office, as much as I don't like the 49ers, they're a lot smarter than that. The buzz I heard today was Brandon Staley going to Frisco and not Belichick. I didn't hear that, but I just don't know if he plays nice with others, right? There you go. Okay, Mark Reiber, it was a drinking mess. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I saw the lady photographer fall off the porch there, and everyone tried to say it was Matthew Stafford's fault. Yeah. Speaking of the Rams, they do have 11 draft picks. Thanks, guys, for the questions. It's fun to interact. I hope it comes across well. I do have a lot of fun doing that. Rams have 11 draft picks this year. They added the compensatory pick for the Raheem Morris going to Atlanta. And so the Rams have 19, 51, 83, and 100. To me, the goal has always been not necessarily high draft pick, but multiple first 100 draft picks. And 19, 51, 83, 100. That's a lot. That's really good. And last year, the Rams drafted 14 players, all made the team. Roughly how you want to rate Davis Allen, 6 of them became starters. And so that was an excellent draft. And it's nice to see the Rams have a good draft after Brad Holmes left, right? They've picked off some pieces after Brad Holmes' departure because, a guy like Brad Holmes leaves and you figure, oh man, is it going to be the same? Well, they've done really well. And Brad Holmes has shown that he held his own too, right? So in Detroit. So just stuff to keep an eye on there. So how many trades would the Rams make to accumulate more draft picks? Their first pick is number 19. Their last pick is 218. On the last day, their last picks are 212, 217, 218. But then they've got that sweet spot of 153, 154, 177, right in that Nakua range, right? And 191. Just again, things to keep an eye on. Next week, we'll get into the positions and maybe talk about guys that would be there in the draft and stuff. And before I dive in further, I know I talked to Tim Burns about this. Everything prior to free agency is a little questionable, but do your mock drafts because it rises names in the high queue. And we start thinking about names, and it's always fun to say, hey, that guy brought up that name. And so if you have a mock draft that you've done, send it to me. I'll post it at joetarosian.com and we'll talk about it here and put a link on it, and it'll be a lot of fun. But again, every time you talk about a mock draft, even if you don't hit it spot on, it allows you to see names and who people are talking about and thinking about. So I've done that the last week. I talked about how Daniel Jeremiah at the end of January had what is it? Laya Tuatetu, the edge from UCLA, had the Rams taking him. Zerline in his last one had the Rams taking Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins at number 19. Josh Edwards at CBS Sports had right tackle Talise Fuaga from Oregon State going to the Rams at 19. And this is something I saw back in beginning of January when I wasn't even really clicking on any of these things. The ringer, is it Daniel Kelly? I'm not sure what his name is. Has the Rams, they just put that out today, has the Rams taking Kool-Aid McKistry from Alabama. And McKistry at number 19 is a great cover guy, 6'1", 195. He can play press, he can play zone, and he plays really physical. And you got to love a physical corner. And he's experienced, right? He's a 2-year starter, and he can return punts. Not that I would want my starting corner returning punts, but it's nice to have that flexibility in there. And I think he plays with a little more, maybe a little more fire than, say, Nate Wiggins. The problem with the Nate Wiggins, they say, is he doesn't have the dog in him, but Kool-Aid McKistry seems to have that. And you want that. You want a fiery corner. I want a L'Jarius Snead at corner. If not, I want a Mike Haynes, Trent McDuffie type, right? That's a pure blanket guy. I thought it was also interesting when I looked at this ringer mock draft, the guy that has jumped up high. Maybe you guys have seen it, maybe you've not, but all of a sudden, and I think this might go to what Tim Burns said, is that you see Bo Nix dropping to the second round, but J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, jumped all the way into the top 10 in the ringer draft poll, mock draft, and had the Falcons taking J.J. McCarthy at number 8 overall. Wow, that seemed kind of high, didn't it? Names that have been mentioned for the Rams had Brock Bowers going to the Jets at number 10. The darling of the Senior Bowl, Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback from Toledo, had the Vikings taking him at number 11. Talise Fuaga had the Raiders taking him at 13. And Tim Burns' guy, Cooper DeJean, out of Iowa, going to the Steelers at number 20. So you match DeJean up with Joey Porter Jr. And then Nate Wiggins going number 29 overall to the Lions, which was interesting because I think it was the Zerline draft that had Wiggins going 19 to the Rams and Kool-Aid McKistry going 31 overall to whoever lost the Super Bowl. I thought that was pretty interesting there too. So wanted to throw that stuff out there. I welcome the stuff you got. It's fun to chit chat a little bit about the draft. It's fun to chit chat a lot about the draft. Speaking of which, been breaking down a lot of the Rams schedule for next year, twice against the 49ers, Cardinals, Seahawks, and then they got the Bears, the Lions, Patriots, Jets, and Saints on the road. They've got the Packers, Vikings, Bills, Dolphins, Eagles, Raiders at home at SoFi, and 9 games at home. But I thought it would be interesting to look at these teams and see where they project. I think the 49ers are going to take a little step back next year. They were 12-5 this year, but they got 4 picks in the top 100. And so that's something to consider. They draft 31, 63, 94, and 98. The Cardinals, who played really well under Jonathan Gannon, really well, they have 6 picks in the top 100, in the first 100. They draft 4th, 27th, 35th, 66, 71, and 90. And if they can get that right, you know, we talked about it during the course of the season that maybe not in 2024, but in 2025, if they can get things right, the Cardinals are going to be the next team competing with the Rams for the NFC West. Again, if they get it right. Jonathan Gannon looked like a hit as a coach last year. He really did. That team continued to play hard for him all the way through. The question there is, do they have their quarterback? I don't think they do, but some others do. The Seahawks were 9-8. They have 16, 78, and 81, 3 picks in the first 100. The Bears were 7-10. They have 3 picks in the first 100, 1, 9, and 75. Lions 12-5. Again, the Brad Holmes effect, right? Lions are 12-5 last year. They got 4 picks in the top 100. That's excellent for a team like this. 29, 61, 73, and 92. So they're in really good shape. The Packers 9-8. This is another team that's in really good shape. They have 5 picks in the first 100. 25th, 41, 57, 88, 91. They've got a good offensive line. They've got their receivers, and they've got their quarterback, right? This is looking really good. They've got their tight ends too. Something to think about, keeping your eyes on the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings, 2 picks, 11 and 42. They were 7 and 10. The Bills, 11 and 6. Be interesting to see how they spend their draft capital. They got 3 picks, 28, 60, and 99. Dolphins, 11 and 6, have 2, number 21 and number 53. Patriots have 3 picks. They were 4 and 13, 3, 34, and 68. Jets only have 2 picks, 10 and 72. The Eagles have 4 picks in the top 100, 22, 50, 54, 97. They're going to need those picks because they need to round out that secondary. Raiders have 3 picks, 13, 44, and 77. And the Saints, 2 picks, 14 and 45. Just stuff to think about going forward on this day in Rams history. After Dick Vermeil left the Rams to go coach the UCLA Bruins in 1974, the Rams hired Elijah Pitts out of Philander Smith. That guy, Elijah Pitts, was drafted, I think, in the 13th round by Vince Lombardi in 1961. He was on 5 Packers championship teams, 3 NFL titles, and 2 Super Bowl championships. And he became a scout later for Dan Devine. And Elijah Pitts was joining the Rams coaching staff in 1974 and was with the club for 4 seasons and went to Buffalo with Chuck Knox. Unfortunately, he died very young. Elijah Pitts passed away of stomach cancer in the late 90s. But want to acknowledge Elijah Pitts coming to the Rams. And again, I'll say it, when you're a young kid and you see all these really crusty, old-looking white guys, right? And it's not an issue of diversity or anything for me. The guy that stood up was, who's that young guy, the young black guy that was there? It was Elijah Pitts. And then you start putting it together when you saw NFL films. That Elijah Pitts that played for the Packers is coaching Lawrence McCutcheon. It's just what came to us. On this day in 2012, on Valentine's Day, the Rams got a sweetheart of a deal. They signed Les Snead as the 17th GM in club history, joining the likes of Elroy Hirsch, Pete Rozelle, Chili Walsh, John Shaw, Steve Ortmeyer, and, of course, Dick Vermeil. Les Snead has been a home run. Let's get a Super Bowl. I know he's already got a Super Bowl. Klosterman didn't get a Super Bowl, but I want to see one of those trades. I want to see one of those Lawrence Welk, Lawrence Welk, John Hadel to Green Bay type trades. And why do you call it a Lawrence Welk trade? Well, when John Hadel got traded to the Packers, it was a 1 and a 2 and a 3, 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, and a 3rd rounder. And so you want to see another deal like that happen in Ram history. But because I'm partial to Klosterman, I want him in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to say Les Snead's the 2nd best GM in Rams history. I know that might be controversial. On this day in 2022, Eric Whittle officially retired with a Super Bowl ring. Congratulations, Eric Whittle, and thank you for services rendered. Wanted to get that out. Tomorrow is February 15th, and I'm not going to be on the air, but on February 15th, 2002, Azir Hakim, London Fletcher, and Ricky Proehl all became free agents. On March the 6th, London Fletcher signed with the Buffalo Bills. Sad day in Ram history. On March the 7th, 2002, Azir Hakim signed with the Detroit Lions. Another sad day in Ram history. But they did bring back Ricky Proehl for another season. Just wanted to throw that down. Also, born on February 15th, 1940, John Hadel. February 15th, 1940, John Hadel. February 15th, 1942, Jim Nettles, defensive back. Remember Jim Nettles out of Wisconsin? February 15th, 1947, Steve Priest out of Oregon State, who really was with the Rams for quite a while through the 76 season. 2 things I remember about Steve Priest was he was the holder for the kicker, and he's the one that did the fake field goal against the Chiefs week 1 in 73. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw. And he was the one that went for the interception on Drew Pearson in the first round of the playoffs in 73. Instead of putting the hit on number 88, he went for the pick, missed it, collided with Eddie McMillan, and Drew Pearson is still running to this day. A very bitter moment in Ram history. But born on this day in 1958, Irv Pankey out of Penn State was born. And he is, what would he be today? 52, 42. He would be about 60. Wow, 60. 6 years old. Wow, 66 years old. Irv Pankey was a very unsung. And what people don't know is through the 80s, Irv Pankey was the left tackle. Jackie Slater was the right tackle. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't think Pankey ever made a Pro Bowl, but I think we got it all in there.
It was a stone groove, my man.
All right, I think we got it in there. Oh, we got some questions here. Let's do that before we wrap up. Okay. Let's see. Mark Reber, but 22 people didn't get shot like in Kansas City today. Was it 22 people, Mark? Man, I didn't even realize it was 22. I heard there was only one fatality, but I heard kids have been hit. And again, you guys understand why you guys cruise in here to talk football. And again, that's all over the news. And I would just be repeating what somebody else said. And this is more of an opinion thing. So that's really, that's a bummer. But I will tell you guys, okay, you could have your argument about guns, you could have your argument about mental illness, but until you acknowledge there's intelligent evil out there, you're not going to find a way to combat this sick stuff. USA expat, early prediction. If cornerback Rams want is not there at 19, they trade down. Ooh, okay. I'm going to hold you to that, USA expat. So when it happens, I'm going to give you all the credit. Tim Burns, since edge and cornerback is pretty deep, do we drop 19 to a Tampa Bay, Washington, Green Bay, all of them multiple top 100 picks? Hey, I'm not against that. I'm not against that at all. The Rams drafted 14 players last year. I'm wondering what they would do. Do they want to add more draft picks? Now, I'm all for adding draft picks in the first 100. But after that, you got to decide what you want to do. That's an interesting thing. I know when I do a mock draft, I always look to see who wants to trade with me, and I trade back. USA expat, you have mentioned John Shaw twice now tonight, the pain and anger. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. That's 3 times I've mentioned John Shaw, and I know that's not a right thing to do for Ram fans. So I apologize. Hey, guys, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to stick around for a minute. But if not, I got to get back to other stuff here. Thank you so much for clicking on. We have not updated Spotify since before the Super Bowl. I'll get this episode up very, very soon. Thank you for following us there. Thank you for those that have maybe just joined us, that have subscribed and liked. Our numbers have jumped, and we so appreciate it. And so for those that have heard it before, I might repeat a few things because we do have new listeners and stuff. And I thank you for your patience. And all off season, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's not going to really be a time where we take a period off, because I think we could always talk Rams football and not mention names, certain names. We should put certain names on a no-fly list, right? And if you want to give me a list of names I shouldn't mention in the future, I'd be happy to list them. And you could write them there, and I'll mention them once, but then maybe I'll put it in the show description, names we do not mention. They're like the Voldemorts of Ram history. All right, guys. God bless. Take care, and we will be back Friday. All right. Take care.